Welcome to UXDX Nordics. Apologies for a slight delay in getting started today. Having some technical difficulties. But so welcome to our event today. I hope you've had time to watch the videos from Jasper and Monica. They're really, really great stories and case studies, and I love hearing them. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to jump in to asking some Q&A questions to our speakers to kind of dig a little bit deeper into the topics. But if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, there's a chat panel at the side of the video to your right, and you can just throw in any questions that you have there and I'll ask them to the speaker as well. Okay, so one of the other things I just want to flag, or we'll jump straight in with Jasper. Okay, so thanks, Jasper, for your talk about Mestro and the balancing and communication process there. So if anybody didn't have a chance to see it, I highly recommend checking that out. So I'm just going to jump straight in. One of your points that you made, and I found this it's just a challenge everywhere, is you kept on talking about balancing the needs between, I guess, the sales side of the business and then the product side. That's always a challenge. So do you have any examples of ways that you were able to do that a little bit better as you were moving on? Like an example maybe of how it was a little bit skewed at the start and now how you're able to manage that balance better.
Of course. And first, thank you for having me as well here. It was an interesting journey for me as well, going back in time to really look into understanding what had changed during the years I've been in this company and understanding why we do things better now. I mean, when you're working in the actual process, you might be very focused on what to improve or what to change. But looking back, we really can see that we had some progress, actually a lot. And again, thank you for having me, and looking forward to the questions also from the audience. But going back to your question, I think that one important thing that shifted for us is basically we grew a bit more confident in what we do, and confident with understanding that our clients and users and different stakeholders are actually smart people that you can communicate this with. So I think the balance we found is actually trusting them with a lot of transparency, clients and other stakeholders, and actually just telling them how we do things and the value for them. Instead of having a specific feature made for them, they could have plenty of features released instead that would benefit them in the end. So I think we're very open about our process, even in the sales process, how we work as a company, that we're always releasing new things, want to develop for many, not a few. And in that way, being very transparent with that and confident that we understand what we do, we actually gained a lot of trust, even in the sales process, which I found interesting.
Excellent. No, that's really inspiring to hear somebody do it. And I'm just going to throw in, because it usually happens, it's like, yes, I understand the process and everything, but this is a huge sale and we just need this to close it and I need you to do it. And thanks for all of that, but come on, can you help me out here? Or do you have any of that still happening?
Of course. And I mean, I would lie if we don't still do things that perhaps in a perfect world we would say no to or rather not. But I mean, I think what we also found is a balance with that as well. Like if we pick up some need from a client, what we don't want to do is just let them do the specification for requirements or actually create the user stories and just implement them. That's what happened before when it was very sales driven. Basically, the client themselves had formulated their needs, and we just implemented exactly what they said. What we do now is a much more balanced process, even in that. So we talk to them and try to figure out other ways. And the most important thing for me there, as a product manager and working with the product team, is the clients a lot of time comes up to us and ask for a solution. But what I want to understand is what is the underlying problem that they try to solve, because there might be several different solutions that they didn't think about, and some of them we might already have. So understanding the basic need and then involving them in the process of creating the stories and developer tasks, and together trying to find the best way forward has been working for us. Paired also with not trying to develop this specific feature only for them, but if you pick something up from one of our clients, I mean, they're smart people working with our product, and they understand the business, so probably someone else will have the same need. So that's what we also try to figure out in that, like, is this a large need for a large group of stakeholders, and then try to do something that we can implement in the product for everyone instead of doing it for a specific client. So there's a lot of communication there, I think, and being transparent with how our process works and involving the clients, and it's been very appreciated. And they're much more harmonic in that sort of dialogue than not understanding what we do and just wanting to have things done for them, basically.
Yeah. So just touching on or continuing on that, so you mentioned that, like, let's get the team involved, let's get the stakeholders involved, let's get the users involved. Do you have a too many chefs problem where it's kind of you're getting too many voices and too many opinions, and it then gets very hard to kind of distill it down?
Yeah, I mean, that's like a kind of a luxury problem to have, actually. Like, we have a lot of great ideas coming in from all different directions, and sorting them out, of course, is a problem. And I know before we tried different prioritization techniques for them, but that's also quite demanding, like in overhead and time like that. So I think we went through a phase before also when we didn't really have a set product management department, but we had a product council which consisted of one person from every department. And what happened then, we definitely had the too many chefs problem, because we tried to make decisions, everyone together, and of course sales wants to drive us forward and try new things, developers want to build from tech, UX design want to have the perfect experience from the US perspective, and in that kind of setting it didn't really work. So I think for now, when we have a good balance in the product management, this is not a problem anymore, because we always collect all ideas, and we are very open and transparent about why we take certain decisions. And it hasn't always been like that, but as long as we are very transparent and talk to all stakeholders and let them understand that they're involved, and we listen to your ideas, but we decided to go this direction because of whatever reason it might be, then we also have a greater acceptance of the decisions we take. So I think having the product department be that middle guy, understanding everyone's needs and try to make everyone satisfied enough, basically, not making anyone too sad or anyone too happy, because then it's unbalanced. Like, that's the struggle of my everyday life, basically. But I think, like, just being open with why we take the decisions is very helpful for us of getting acceptance of the decisions themselves.
And that was a point that you touched on in your talk, where you didn't get that balance right at one point, and it went far too heavily on the tech side. Can you give an example that what you mean by that, where it was too focused on tech and not enough kind of the balance?
I mean, that was like the pendulum shifted from like the sales driven to the tech one, right? And thinking back at it, it was a quite interesting a project when I were quite new at Metro, and what we tried to do back at the time was to build like a full support and full integration to another system that was widely used sustainability reporting platform, basically. So what happened then is I mean, this project became ridiculous at some time. I think it stretched over a couple of years, and in the end it never finished, because they wanted to make a complete solution to all the needs that everyone would have in using this platform together with our platform. And what was a bit funny in the end that it turned out we only had like a couple of customers who actually wanted to use this system, and there were other systems that were more widely used. And the problem was no one ever asked a question to one of the clients who wanted to use this, like how do you want to use it, and what do you need? And no one talked to basically to the company we were collaborating with and the product we wanted to integrate to understand their roadmap and what they wanted to do. Because in the end, when we were about to finish, I don't know, there was quite a bit job left, but then the other system just changed completely their setup. So everything we did, because it took so long time, it wasn't useful anymore. So that's like you
that's
really
painful.
outside to so, but it was, I mean, we learned from it. So I think that's the important thing, and now we can laugh about it. And because I asked the tech team just before when I was putting together these slides, and like, okay, so what are you not proud of in your history? And this was one of them. Like, we forgot to actually ask someone what they needed. So
great. Well, thanks very much, Jasper. I really enjoyed your talk, and as I said, if you didn't get a chance to watch it, please do go have a look. And yeah, we'll be chatting again in a few minutes, but thank you for now.
Thank you.
Thanks. And with that quick change, hello, Monica. I can't hear you at the moment.
Oh, hi.
Yes.
It's now better? Hi, Rory. Sorry.
Hi.
I'm frozen, but if you can see me move, then we're all good.
I can see you perfectly.
Okay, nice.
Great. So welcome, Monica. And hopefully everybody out there has gotten to see her talk about implementing universal checkout at Primer. So yeah, Monica, I might just jump into the questions and kind of some of the thoughts that came up to me anyway about the kind of your talk and some of the questions that I had. But do feel free, if you're out there, there's the chat box at the side, throw in your questions as well if you have anything.
Awesome.
So first, I just want to dig into, can you give a little bit of context about Primer? Like, what's the scale and what are we talking about in terms of the teams and how they work together?
Right. So Primer it's an infrastructure or automation platform for payments and commerce, really. And we're just about slightly more than 2 years old. And so we've grown from when I joined, we're 8 people on the team in May 2020. And today we're, I think, 120 or 130 people in, I don't know how many countries, but we're fully remote. So I've lost track of how many countries we have employees in.
Excellent. And do you have, is that primarily like kind of tech focused people, or is there also a lot on the kind of the sales and the marketing side?
We have obviously a massive engineering team, but we also have a big design team and sales team, both in Southeast Asia, US and Europe. And of course, marketing.
Brilliant. I'm going to jump to a little bit of the elephant in the room now, because we're talking about universal checkout, and the news has been quite big about there was a high profile company called Fast that went out of business there about probably 2-3 weeks ago now. So it sounds like Primer and Fast are in the same kind of product space. Would that be fair? And then what's to stop? Why is Primer going to succeed where Fast didn't?
Yeah, so Primer also has a checkout. Obviously, we've spoken about the checkout, but Primer is a lot more than just a checkout. So a checkout is part of our payment service. So in Primer, you have the automation engine and the payment service, and the checkout is a part of that. Obviously, we have massive ambitions for our checkout, and a one-click checkout experience, such as the one that Fast was promoting, is one of them. And it's very interesting that, what happened to Fast, and it obviously happened very, very fast overnight. It went from this massive valuation, and, investors were very, very keen on the company. I think what they did that was interesting was that they were targeting consumers. So they were trying to build a consumer brand and positioning it as solving a consumer problem of, the hassle of paying online. And I think it seemed like they did a fairly good job, at least like I was seeing fast everywhere as a consumer. Well, maybe I was researching payments, so maybe that's not fair to say. Anyways, but I feel like
I was seeing it everywhere as well.
yeah, exactly. But I don't think that they had many customers. And if it would be my guess, I would guess that it was because Fast got an investment from Stripe and they were locked in to only process payments with Stripe. And that is a problem for merchants. So merchants don't want a checkout that only works with Stripe. So I think this was holding back their expansion.
Okay, that's great. So we'll move on from kind of the competitor space. One thing I just found really interesting about your talk was you mentioned the founder kind of reaching out to you, and Jasper's talk was all about how do you balance the priorities of everybody. But what are you supposed to do when the founder, or how did you manage it when the founder came to you with kind of an idea? Do you run with it, or do you try to make sure that it's more than just the founder kind of telling you what to do?
Oh, it wasn't the case, right? Like the founder was asking me to jump on a call with a customer, and this was, one of our first customers. This was my first week. This is actually the first week before I even started at Primer. So I was already kind of like onboarding and starting to talk with the team, but I wasn't even like officially on the team. So we had, I think, probably like 2 or 3 bigger clients that we were really interested in working together with as we were building out, the MVP of the product. And one of them were asking for a checkout. So it was 100%, driven by a customer request. And at that point, when you're like 3 months old and you actually have a big customer who's asking for something, there is just like, you just have to jump on it and like, let's figure it out. And it turned out to be, a really good move. The checkout is obviously like a key success driver and a really important product for Primer.
Excellent. And then, you kind of mentioned like you were starting before you even started, but that growth trajectory that you've seen, how has that impacted kind of design at Primer? Like, so if you're going from that kind of small 8-person, very manageable kind of single team to this kind of explosive growth, how have you managed that scaling of design?
So I think it's a really good idea to involve design from the very beginning. So one of the reasons I decided to join Primer in the first place was that the founders were actually speaking to me. So they reached out to me and said, like, design and product is really, really important to us. So, it's still very, very early. And we want design and product to be involved from this early stage. And I think if you do that, you're already in a very, very good position to be a design-driven company. That doesn't mean that you're not a tech company or you're not, customer focused. It's one of the things that you want, one of the areas that you want represented. I think that a lot of companies bring on design and UX way too late in the growth journey, and kind of treat design as making things pretty at the last stage when everything else has been sort of defined and decided. So when you have that like design thinking and you value design, and design is kind of a part from the very beginning, then it never becomes a problem, right? Like it's just part of your process, and and you're always involved in decisions. So I don't feel like we've struggled or had to like think about it actively. I've been lucky to, have a lot to say at Primer and feel like I've had a massive impact because I was there so early, and because design and user experience is very valued at Primer. So, in the very beginning, I was doing everything myself. And then over time, I could hire 2 designers. And now I have many designers in my team. So one thing that you need to, be ready to do or when you're working with a company with this growth trajectory is like adaptability. You have to like change and like thrive in an atmosphere of constant change. And it's fine, like some people don't do that, right? But I think I get very easily bored. So I think it's awesome that my role has changed tremendously from my first week or the week before I officially started to, leading product design and having like a team of, I think, 11 people right now. So what I've had to do is just learn, grow, improve, listen to feedback, adapt, and we're constantly changing structure and processes and teams to adapt to, the strategy, the market, to, the product areas that we want to build out. And I think, if you also have that adaptability and you're comfortable with that, it doesn't become a problem where you constantly have to think about like how to reorganize, how to restructure organization.
Great. No, thanks for sharing your experience of that growth. It must have been crazy with also the pandemic thrown in for good measure, the scaling. So
yeah.
Thanks for sharing. So yeah, now actually we've kind of, the purpose of these were kind of a bit of a quick fire Q&A, but the speakers will be able to answer any questions if you do have any that we didn't get to. So please throw those in the Slack channel. But now actually we're going to jump into a panel conversation. So with the magic of movement, we're all here again. Welcome back, Jasper.
Thank you. And thank you, Monica. I found it very interesting how you have put like design and UX at the center of your organization and how you work with these questions. I just want to, sorry for cutting in now, Rory, but I just wanted to ask something about that because it's something that I've been thinking a lot about as well. And we don't have a team of 11 UX designers. We are only one at the moment. Like we're just starting out our journey with like the visual design in that regard. We always had one, but we decided to have UX design as a part of the product team, just to involve them very early and work closely with the end users and where the actually product research is being made. But I was wondering a little bit about how you have organized like the UX and design in your development process and to make sure you get it at this early stage. So that I was a bit curious about that actually.
Yeah, so I think, again, I think it just comes quite naturally to us. And it's probably driven by how we were structured from the very beginning. So we never had to make an effort to put designers in any special position. The other thing I would mention is that all designers kind of belong to the product design team, but they're also design leaders in their respective product teams. So they're constantly working. They're actually spending way more time with their product teams than they're spending with the design team. So they're just part of all the conversations. Every stand up. They talk about they make decisions. They share insights, customer feedback. So designers are just always there, part of the product team. So they never have to fight for a seat at the table. They're just an integral part. And thirdly, I would mention that it's one of the things that we value, that we've pointed out as a success metric for our team, is how much designers contribute to innovation in their product teams. So we're very, very clear on designers and PMs and everyone else that they work with, so that designers have a role and they have a say in these things, and they're even expected to, drive innovation, come with ideas, and work very closely with the PMs and the engineers and everyone else on the team.
How do you measure kind of the impact? If you're saying that they're being challenged to drive innovation, how do you measure that?
Oh, it's very simple. I send out a survey to all the PMs every month. and I just asked them last month, how much do you feel like your designer has contributed to not just like, it's not about like how many ideas they had, but you can contribute to innovation with your attitude, with asking questions, with just like being a part of like that innovation spirit. And sometimes it's harder to answer that question, and sometimes it's just like, well, it's not an exact science, but I think you can answer that question from a scale 1 to 5, and make sure that designers know that they're being evaluated this way. So that will push them. And we track these metrics, and I share them with the whole team every month.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, I found this very interesting. So, I mean, just before there was like the shift from traditional product management with list of requirements and sending it to the dev team, do this, and the shift now has been more to like a Scrum or Agile with a product owner doing the user stories. But I mean, this might be like the next step of the evolution of product management and how you product develop in very visual products, where you have like a user flow. Maybe a designer, a UX designer, should drive that instead of. I haven't heard of it, like it being in the center so much. So I really. It's intrigued me a lot. That's an idea.
I think even more so, I think it can be in the forefront in many ways. I think that designers traditionally have been taught that they need to go through this very rigid, design thinking process where they have to do all the research and they have to do these user maps and user personas and whatnot before they can even like start playing around with something visual. The designers actually have this very unique skill to actually create visual stuff, and they're just like not making use of that. So I want to kind of flip things around. I love saying, we have an idea. Let's just, create a very quick and dirty mock and see how it feels. And now suddenly it's so much easier to feedback. It's so much easier to test. It's so much easier to show it to someone and say, like, does this make sense? Where would you, what would you do with this next? And it's also that way it's easier to drive innovation in a team, right? Where you can say, hey, I have an idea and I can show it to you. And that's a skill designers have. So I always encourage people to, make use of that.
Yeah, the triad that a lot of people talk about, it's kind of design, engineering, PM, where they're all working together right at that start, just throwing out ideas, and you can come up with the speed at which you can move then and kind of come up with valuable, usable ideas is great.
I mean, of course, it's much easier. We try to also involve like users early to have something to click on instead of describing it in text. I mean, you can't relate that to something. If you have something clickable, I mean, you can get some very different feedback, of course. So I think that's a good approach. Sure.
I have one question actually that came up, and I'm going to I'll direct it at both of you, but I'll start with Monica. In your talk, you were talking about the universal checkout, and I love the way that you said instead of kind of doing all these features, you flipped it to modules that then the end user could kind of turn them on and off. From a design perspective, how did you manage that? Because you're then giving so much control to the user that maybe they've turned off like 3 things and turned on another one, and now you've got a kind of a skewed design because it doesn't quite fit anymore. So how did you manage that where you're giving that level of flexibility to the end user?
So if you're using universal checkout as it is coming out of the box, we still control the layout, right? So we give you can think of it as Lego pieces, right? They're still designed by Lego. They fit nicely together because we've made sure that the pieces will fit nicely together. And you could toggle on all of them and they will still make sense because they're positioned such that they do make sense. Well, developers and merchants still have control over the styling, but this way they can just very easily in the UI choose which features they want to toggle on and off. And of course, if they're using headless universal checkout, then they're free to do whatever they want.
Whatever. And you mentioned, because Yeah, there's one bit was the toggling on and off, and then there was the styling that people, because they wanted it in their colors or those kind of things. How much control did you really give people there? Because again, it could fall into that kind of things just don't look right or something, or is that just that's their responsibility because when you gave it to them, it looked nice and then they were the ones who went and changed it?
Yeah, so the thing with Primer is that we don't want to push our brand. Like when you're using Primer's Universal Checkout, there is no like Primer sticker or logo on it. It comes with a very simple, neutral design that I think still looks decent, but it's very, very simple. It's not meant to be designed in any way. It will fit nicely into like a white, website, and it's fine if you don't touch the styling. But we actually encourage merchants. Most merchants will want to style it because you want it to fit nicely with your website font and your colors and your borders and styles. So yeah, they should have full control. There's no reason why you should have, a Primer branded or, a branded checkout at all.
Okay, excellent. There's a good approach to it. I'm going to flip it. It's a similar but slightly different question now to Jesper. So you mentioned how one of your big learnings was that you just had to keep getting smaller and smaller and small iterations and more rapid kind of delivery. So I've seen a lot of places run into a kind of an issue that actually Monica talked about, a very elegant way of coming around it, but that if you're constantly just looking at these small pieces, who's making sure that the big picture all fits together and you don't end up with a kind of a Frankenstein style kind of product in the end because you're just plugging all of these extra small pieces together?
Sure, and I mean, I think that approach is used like in different abstraction levels, also in the design or product development. And I think it's mostly when we construct stories and want to develop specific features that we know we want, to not make this mistake that we did with the big project that took 2 years and didn't lead anywhere. If we rather want to break it down to smaller pieces. Let's say we do 2 out of 10 things, we still can deliver something with the value. And I think it's me as a head of product, I will be responsible for the overall roadmap to understand, okay, how does these features fit together and are we moving in the right direction? So it's more up to our designers and product owners to delivering the special feature to understand like how do we fit the pieces together. And one interesting thing I thought about now that Monica also mentioned, talking about the modularization. I mean, that's basically what saved us from our previous errors. Instead of trying to build something that fits everyone or a very specific solution for a certain client, instead we're building pieces that they also can put together to make the system that they want, because we have a very wide what's it called, like a range of stakeholders also, like within the companies we work for. Like firstly everyone has properties, right, and buildings, investment companies, housing companies. So we have a lot of different industries we're working in, and in these companies we also have the technicians that want the data because they need to understand how to make the best decisions in the buildings for conserving energy. And we have the high-level executives who want the reportings for yearly reports. And we have to understand all of these needs. But what we did before, we had everything in a monolith. It was like, that was a problem. If you went into our app, you could see everything, and it scares people because if you don't just only use 10%, you don't want to see everything else, right? So that's where modularization and putting the small pieces together in packages that were directed to a certain target group really has helped us to come past this problem. So we use modularization instead of customization, basically. So being able to have a quite flexible system will ensure that our users can get what they want, and only that, without having to make custom things for them.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered the question. I spaced out a little bit there as well, but
No, I love that approach. And one kind of, it's almost a devil's advocate, because I've seen this a few times where people go, oh, like you mentioned, we swung the pendulum a little bit too far where we just went solely tech focused. But sometimes I see companies where they have so much tech debt and just the way things are, they really have to kind of just swing away to focus and just tidy up the house a little bit before you can really start delivering those features. So how much do you think that was part of your swing, was to enable what you just talked about there, was that kind of separation and the modularization? And how much of that was kind of necessary, or do you still think that you even went a bit further than was necessary?
I mean, I think we probably definitely went a bit too far in that, and for a too long period of time, like we sorted our debt, but then continued to work in that way because we could see that it produced good things, but it was only like tech driven. And I mean, there was a lot of very important things we did. I mean, this might be old news for everyone else, but we moved into a cloud during that time. I mean, some companies might have done it 10 years ago, but we didn't have the time and calm in the development team to do that, because we needed to sell and we needed to sell new things. So that, I mean, and that's one of the most important things for us to be able to scale now, like having a completely cloud-based database and be able to microservice that one as well. So it definitely was very much needed, and I'm very glad that it happened, because now we can scale much more with all the data that flows and we store.
Yeah, I think AWS just announced their figures. I can't remember the stats exactly, but it was something like, this is how much money we're making, but this is 2% of IT spend. So 98% of IT spend is still not on the cloud. And so you're definitely not the only one out there who hasn't moved. Monica, I don't know, because you're probably more in the design space, but do you know whether you had a similar kind of a tech issue there? Because you mentioned in your talk that you went from this kind of, oh, we'll make it easy to integrate, but then it wasn't so easy to integrate, to then making it super simple, which, if you're making it super simple for your customers, you're taking all the complexity internally there.
Yeah.
So do you have any insights about how did your team manage that? Because I know you were saying some of the things about fast, but one of the ones I read was that they underestimated the technical challenge of what they were taking on. And that was taking them a lot longer to develop. So what's it been like from your perspective?
I mean, building a checkout is really hard. There's a lot of things you need to take into consideration. I don't know exactly what Fast struggled with. Also Bolt.
They were saying, so their point was that you thought, okay, I'll build universal checkout, but it was every single customer almost had a different integration, so they couldn't build something that was just plug and play. But you seem to have overcome this problem.
So what we've noticed is, I mean, our complexity on the integration grew because we were adding features, right? So you're adding new types of payment methods. They are asynchronous, so there's like more back and forth, and you need to include the webhooks, or you're adding some third-party service modules that now suddenly ask for additional information from the merchant. So you need to add additional fields to pass into Primer, stuff like that. So our complexity of the integration grew as we were adding features. But looking at Fast, they have one feature, like it's one thing. So it's literally one button. They offer no alternative payment methods, and it's all processed by Stripe. So I actually struggle to understand where the complexity was and why they had different, as you mentioned, different types of customers with different integrations. Because to me, it all sounds the same, but obviously would be interesting to learn what it was. And I'm also actually surprised to hear what were they working on for such a long time with such a big team. well, it was just one button, right? So we started very, very simple. It was a checkout with a couple of payment methods that worked broadly the same way, and cards, obviously, and you could style and customize it. And then when we started adding new modules and different types of payment methods, like crypto, by the way, is also very, very different. Now the complexity grew, and we kind of didn't take care of the complexity. Rather, we just put it on the merchant to figure it out. And then we realized that it's unsustainable. It's not a good developer experience. So can we include more of the back and forth communication between the SDK and Primer CPI in the SDK itself? And it's all driven by the automation platform or workflows. So the checkout just does the right thing and displays the correct information back and forth until you just get, payment success, and you can show your success screen, whether you want to use Primers or your own.
Excellent. It's great to hear that you've overcome what they obviously couldn't.
I think that will be like a business case for the business schools coming up after it's too soon to talk about it.
Yeah, too soon.
Well, the founder actually, we're getting very off topic, but he went on to a podcast like the day or two afterwards, and I'm thinking you probably shouldn't, but it was everybody's fault but his for the failure. So he absolved himself. But anyway, moving on. So I'm going to jump back into your talk, Jasper. So you mentioned the criticality of customer success in what you're building, and how can you explain a bit more about how it works that you get your information? So obviously customers contact customer success, but how does that filter through and feed through to your team? So
I mean, we have a quite complex product as well. Like, so customer success, so of course, like you said, they feed us with product ideas, but I mean, the most important reason for them being a very important part of our company is that our clients need some guidance if they want to use the really advanced functions, right? And the variation of the knowledge in our clients is very, very different. Like a sustainability manager on an investment company, they don't know anything about energy and technology, and they shouldn't. It's not a job, but they need someone to help them with that. So I think that's like one of the important things with our customer success department being very important. But what we do basically, every idea that comes in the dialogue with our customer success team and the clients, we save them in our project in Asana. And so far I have been personally going through all of them. It doesn't take too much time, because the thing is, I do it, our UX designer do it, and also our product owner do it, because it's a very, very good way of seeing like where are the tides shifting, because we know the roadmap, we understand which directions we want to move, but also getting a little bit of reality check. Like if we hear a lot of clients asking about a certain thing, of course now if you follow the sustainability news in EU right now, it's basically taxonomy. That's what everyone help us. How do we deal with the EU taxonomy? What numbers do we need? How do we sustainability report? So we understand like this is a shift in the market, and we hear it from our clients. They want to understand things. So basically we collect all ideas all the time, and if we know that it's something we're working on, we can put them in that project in Asana or that research project. If it's something for the future, we put it in a pile for the future to pick up on later, and we respond to the customer success so that they can talk to the clients as well, so they know they're being listened to. And I think one thing that changed there to avoid like too many chefs and also build a better relationship with our clients is that we talk to them a lot so that they understand also the difference between I've ordered something that IT should deliver, and this is an interesting idea that we might or might not do something with. And they understand that we listen to them, we take everything in, and we need to balance them for the greater good of all users, basically. So I think we found a good way of doing that and responding to them in a way that they don't expect it to come out in a couple of weeks. But when they do, we of course inform them that we're releasing new things, basically.
Excellent. And you said actually at the start that your personal background started in customer success before moving in. So do you think that's given you a slight bias towards that, or an advantage in a way of working like that?
I think it's more of an advantage. And I would all of the people that I have recruited for the product team is actually also internally recruited from the customer success team. So I think it's and now we actually having like all new recruits in our company will start a couple of weeks in the customer success team, and our sales team will start for a longer time. And I think it's really important because in that team, you work with the clients every day. You know their pain points, you understand what they want on a daily basis. So I think that's a really good lesson to learn, and you get to be a bit more humble. I can't say like it's just the client who wants that, and they didn't understand what they want, because I understand. Okay, if they want to if they have a problem that they want us to listen to, it probably is important to them, and we need to understand it. So I think it's only a strength. And I was joking a little bit about that in the talk as well. But I mean, the importance of customer success to our company now and in the future is like that kind of service as part of from our SaaS product is basically equally important. And I was think that it will continue, or even becoming more important when our product becomes even more advanced. I mean, I think that's what will happen.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it's always the focus on the customer. So it's great that you're getting that background. One thing, and I don't know if this is an issue for you, but it comes up a lot in the conversations about product managers. Should they be technical? Should they not? So do you have a technical background, or kind of, I guess, coming from customer service, I'm making the assumption that it's probably less technical. But is that an issue for you?
No, I mean, I have a technical background, but I mean, it's the wrong technical background, basically. So I'm a mechanical engineer. That's my my field of study. And I mean, in that field, I mean, of course, it's product development, but it's for physical products. So it's the work process, the understanding of which stakeholders to involve is basically the same if you have a physical product or code. And I mean, my understanding from the business of energy and the technical understanding of how energy works and stuff like that, I have from my research before. So I have that. I don't know code, basically, but I don't need to know code more than on a conceptual level, because we have great architects that understand. They're part of the tech team. And I mean, they will always know which is the best technical solution, and we talk about it. So they might ask me, or a product owner or UX designer, like, could we do this instead? It would be easier for us. And we always say yes, basically, because it's small tweaks. And I mean, we want to have an environment where the tech team also is empowered to themselves, not just doing what someone else says, but also be critical about, is this the right way of doing it? And then if they don't think it's right, they will tell us, and then we will talk about it, basically. So I don't need to know code, because they do, and they will let me know if we did something that's we're not supposed to do in the technical part of the product, basically.
Excellent. Yeah, Monica, I just want to jump to your talk, because you mentioned that you have a developer success team. Is that essentially customer success because your customers are developers, or are your customers really the marketers who are buying it? Like, what is your customer/developer success setup?
So it's not the same thing. So we do have customer success, which is usually talking to, the head of payments or the CTO or the payments product managers, or whoever is, sort of buying and making the decision to use Primer, who's the key stakeholder on the payment side. Developer success is obviously cares about the developers who are integrating Primer, but also, we want to build a community around Primer in the developer community. So I think that, if we do a good job on the developer experience side, developers will be choosing Primer over other payment solutions. And that's really, the goal. And there's a lot to be done on, developer experience. I think Stripe is famous for being developer-centric in the world of payments, at least. And literally every developer I know who's built a Stripe integration thought it was very, very painful. And they're still known for, the best developer experience. So I think there's a lot that can be done and improved. So we're just striving to, become the obvious choice for developers and giving them an amazing experience, even when there's someone else in the organization who made the decision.
Great. And so with your developer success, is that like somebody to talk to, or is that team just focused on, we have to have the best API docs, we have to have, so it's more, can developers self-service, or is it a call center help type of a situation?
No, it's a product team. So it's a product team with the PM and engineers and the designer, and they obviously own our docs, our API reference, as you mentioned, but also thinking about like what developer tools can we build to make the integration easier. So for example, testing tools, debugging tools, the developer section, and self-service, as you mentioned. And we're also trying to figure out, how can we improve things even more? So what other types of developer tools can we build to facilitate the integration, like a interactive integration walkthrough that helps you understand rather than just read through the docs. So that's essentially the developer success team, which is a product team.
Excellent. I completely misinterpreted that, so thanks for the clarification.
Yeah.
Great. So I think we've gone through all of my questions. Did you, either of you, have questions to each other? I know Jasper actually started off by getting in a few of his questions. Do you have any further questions? No.
I was thinking a little about, I think like one thing that also interests me, like you talked about, and also now that you have also like something that we struggle with, of course, but I think it's more maybe like clear for you as well. So I would want to understand a little bit more how you work with that, and that's the different kind of like users or of your products that are outside, like external stakeholders. You mentioned like the merchant, which might be what you would refer to as your client or customer, but then you have the developer as well. I didn't really understand that as well before you talked about it. I thought it was an internal developer, but now it's also an external client, and they have an end user also. And I was wondering about like, how do you balance all these needs? And then you have all the needs of the internal stakeholders that want to do like you to do different things. Like how did you manage to understand all these needs and putting them together? Because my guess is that they don't know each other's needs, like in the organizations you work with either. So someone needs to help them, right?
Yeah, actually there's more than that, because we also build parts of the product specifically for support teams. So we have a lot of support agents using, because oftentimes when there's something wrong with payments, right? So we have like massive support teams who are just like using Primer's dashboard to find that transaction and inform their customers like, oh, why the payment didn't go through, or why they cannot have a refund, or whatever the case might be. So that's very different types of user. We also have products for finance teams. So financial reporting and reconciliation, which is again, very different type of user that cares about like the output rather than configuring the payment strategy. And even to make it even more complex, we also have partners. So all the third-party applications that you can use on Primer, we most often we partner with these services. So we call them partners, and they will be soon be opening up and allowing third parties to build integrations to Primer without us being even involved. So that's, again, a different type of user, which we're building, we call it Primer Connect, separate dashboard for. What we do is basically we have those teams that are built around a problem area of a specific user, right? So we allow the developer success team to focus only on the developers that are building integrations to Primer. The Primer Connect team only focuses on partners and their developers, and the payments operations team focuses on the finance teams. So it's quite easy to have this like very, very specific focus when you have very clear product ownership over a specific area, and you don't have to decide or define priorities between those teams because they're independent and they have their own set of KPIs, their own roadmap. There is, in many cases, there are dependencies, right? Like the checkout works along workflows and so on and so forth. So the teams do collaborate a lot, but they have their specific users that they can focus on.
Oh, that's interesting. That sounds like a good approach. Because then you basically have like each team are experts on the certain product area as well. And in the cases where those product areas in the product need to have some API or some like integration between them, they will sort it out. But usually they are like they operate product-wise also. They are not affected by each other's in that.
Yes, so we're trying to find this like separation of concerns to make sure that everyone is independent and can move as fast as they possibly can within their product area. But the reality is, of course, that there are interdependencies and people collaborate and they share information.
Sure.
Great. Yeah. That was a great summary. Actually, I really like that structure. It's perfect for the customer centricity approach that we advocate of kind of each team focus on a particular customer. I think that's all we have time for today, but I really enjoyed our conversation. So thank you to Monica and Jasper for sharing all of your insights and thoughts.
Thank you for having us.
Excellent. So that brings us to the end of the event today. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Just a quick reminder, please stay connected with UXDX, and we'll be running our EMEA event in October. So if you'd like the talks that you heard today, it's going to be over 3 days. So it's much longer, kind of from the 12th to the 14th. There's a 4th day is workshops, and we have early bird on sale right now for $199 if you want online access, or from $549 if you're looking for in-person access. And there's a community discount for attending one of our community events of Community 10, where you'll get 10% off. So thank you.